Chapter 081. The glitch named Giggs. Predictably, Kelt hadn't waited. He'd moved his troops early. Wade slammed his fist on the table, cursing, "Damn it. We got them intel, Harlan, and these Hazians just leave us to hang." Harlan, however, seemed unfazed, his expression unchanged. His calm demeanor puzzled the other two. Into his headset, he issued orders to Lyra and Lambert. "Continue your infiltration. Prioritize mission execution, but also your own safety. We're pulling out." "Understood." Wade and Lyra exchanged grave looks. The heavy truck wasn't far from Dark Raven Valley base now. Once Dark Raven Valley went to combat alert and ramped up security, the truck's tracks would be spotted soon enough. No time to waste. Lyra, get behind the wheel. Lyra, a martial artist, lacked ranged combat capability from a moving vehicle. She didn't argue with the arrangement. Harlan and Wade would stay in the cargo hold, able to return fire. Lyra abandoned any pretense of stealth, flooring the accelerator. The heavy truck's engine roared, tires spitting dirt as it lurched into motion. Almost instantly, a series of engine sounds echoed in the distance, sending a jolt through them. Harlan peered through the cargo hold window. A swarm of Sprout-armored all-terrain vehicles was bearing down on them, headlights cutting through the trees. Dozens, at least, each with a mounted machine gun on top. "We are made," Wade muttered, his stomach sinking. Ignoring the heavy truck's violent jolting, Harlan opened a weapons case, prepping their arsenal. A chase was guaranteed. "Lyra, faster," Wade yelled. "I'm going as fast as she'll go." Lyra gritted her teeth, shifting gears, pushing the heavy truck's engine to its limit. It howled like a wounded beast, massive all-terrain tires tearing deep ruts in the forest floor. The rugged terrain bucked and pitched, and even with the chassis air suspension fighting to absorb the shocks. The cargo hold was a maelstrom of motion. Harlan glanced out the cargo window. The Sprout ATVs were closing fast. "Can't you push it any harder?" Wade urged, his voice tight with tension. "This is a heavy truck, not a sports car." Lyra snapped back, exasperated. Suddenly, Harlan's voice cut through the noise. "Next to the gearshift 4 buttons, nitrous boost. You installed nitrous on a heavy truck." Lyra stared, dumbfounded, then a grin split her face. She reached for the buttons, but Harlan grabbed her arm. "Forest terrain, Lyra. You want to wreck us. Wait for open ground." Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Dozens of heavy machine guns opened fire from the pursuing vehicles. Muzzle flashes spitting fire. Bullets ripped through the trees, tracers stitching a path towards them. At this range, accuracy was non-existent, but the sheer volume of fire was terrifying. Trees splintered and crashed. Stray rounds hammered against the cargo hold's armored plating in a shower of sparks. Lyra glanced in the rearview mirror a split second later. A bullet shattered it. She cursed under her breath, wrestling the lumbering truck, weaving around trees, dodging the hail of lead. The truck lurched violently, slamming her against the driver's seat. In the cargo hold, chaos reigned. Gear bounced, equipment flew. Harlan scrambled to secure loose equipment and weapon cases with straps. The two bound prisoners huddled in a corner, trembling. Dusk bled across the sky, painting the forest in shades of blood orange. The chase intensified. Dozens of armored ATVs and the black heavy truck locked in a desperate race. The heavy truck fleeing for its life. The pursuers relentless. Bullets chewed through wood and leaves. Gunfire echoing through the woods. The roar of so many engines, a monstrous mechanical dragon snaking through the trees, even in the distant Raven Wood town. The wanderers could faintly hear the commotion, turning towards the sound with puzzled expressions. Closer, closer, closer. Suddenly, the heavy truck burst from the tree line, careening into Raven Wood town like a rogue rhino. It slammed headfirst into a small building, turning it into a pile of rubble in a single, brutal impact. The truck's reinforced front bumper buckled visibly. The heavy truck roared down the street, wanderers scattering, diving for cover. They watched, terrified, as the truck's rear end disappeared, then cautiously poked their heads out, murmuring in shock. Before they could even begin to speculate, the ATVs roared into town. Chasing relentlessly, smashing into buildings, reducing them to splinters and brick dust, bullets flew indiscriminately. Wanderers caught in the crossfire screamed and fell. The streets running red, the last sliver of twilight faded. Night descended as the heavy truck finally tore free of the forest's edge onto the flat expanse of the plains. The pursuer's headlights formed a luminous dragon, weaving across the open ground, muzzle flashes punctuating the darkness. Open plains, the ATVs would close the gap faster now. The distance narrowed steadily. 600 meters, 500, 400, Wade, armor up. Wade's adrenaline surged. He'd been prepped and ready. The moment he activated the armor, the transformation hit him. The exoskeleton hummed to life, taking the weight off his muscles. His vision shifted to a tactical display. Streams of battlefield data scrolling across his HUD. Target acquisition assistance flashed in the corner of his eye. Wade's eyes widened, a grin spreading across his face beneath the helmet. This is insane. Harlan was ramming a high-explosive sniper magazine into his heavy rifle. He glanced over, unimpressed. Basic upgrades, one thought hammered in Wade's brain. 36,000 well spent. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of bullets impacting the heavy truck's armor intensified. Return fire, Harlan roared the command. Wade kicked open the cargo hold doors. The world exploded into view. His face was hidden behind the armored mask, but his expression was feral. He raised the twin-linked large-caliber machine guns, unleashing a furious barrage. Da-da-da-da-da-da. The deafening roar of the autocannons was deafening, muzzle flashes spitting fire. Spent casings ejected in a brassy rain, clattering to the floor. Large-caliber rounds streaked through the night, tracers burning bright, tearing into the ATV formation. Boom! Two ATVs' bulletproof windshields shattered, the occupants inside shredded. Wade's thigh-mounted ammo packs fed long belts of ammunition, stretching back into the cargo hold. A veritable mountain of ordnance Harlan had prepared, enough to let the warsuit prototype unleash its full fury. The dozens of ATVs scattered, breaking formation to evade Wade's withering fire. Returning fire with their own mounted machine guns, but Wade, encased in armor, stood defiant in the cargo hold doorway. The outer plates, fortified with a Tiberium alloy by Harlan, shrugged off the impacts. Durability barely flickered. Wade raised the hexagonal riot shield on his back, bracing against the onslaught, his rock-solid form absorbing the majority of the incoming fire. Harlan shouldered his sniper rifle, firing high-explosive rounds with calculated precision. Vehicles erupted in flames, drivers caught completely off guard. Engines choked and died as the inferno consumed them. One by one, ATVs sputtered to a halt, but still more ATVs closed in, the heavy truck's exterior armor now pockmarked with a dense pattern of bullet holes. Close enough, Harlan's eyes narrowed. He dropped the sniper rifle, grabbing a weapon case filled with bamboo dragonfly delay fuse explosives. He started throwing them out like they were worthless. Each one arcing low, designed to detonate beneath the ATV's chassis. Boom! The ATVs were ripped skyward by the underbelly explosions, momentum carrying them into spectacular flips. Spinning 180 degrees before crashing down, roofs first, in roaring infernos. Fuel tanks ignited in secondary blasts, ensuring no survivors. Kill notifications flooded Harlan's HUD. Each delayed explosive that flipped an ATV guaranteed at least 4 to 8 kills, plus vehicle destruction experience. Each vehicle was netting Harlan 5,000 to 7,000 experience points. He was detonating them with savage glee. The prepared explosives were finally paying off. Harlan lost count of the kills. After another explosion sent an ATV cartwheeling. A new notification flashed on his panel. Main mission, head-on confrontation completed. You gained 35,000 experience? Arg! A scream tore through the chaos. Harlan snapped back to reality. He saw the two prisoners slumped in the corner, riddled with stray bullets. A cold dread settled in his stomach. The prisoners are dead. The pursuing ATV fire slackened. The occupants were clearly terrified by the heavy truck's unexpected firepower. One heavy truck had just shredded over 20 armored vehicles. Unthinkable. Suddenly, Lyra's voice crackled with excitement. "I see Hazian vehicles. Up ahead." Harlan looked. In the night, lines of Hazian military vehicles were approaching. Headlights blazing, a column of light in the darkness. "Commander, small unit engagement ahead." Kelt watched the command vehicles monitor. The scene shocked him. Over 20 armored ATVs, pursuing a battered, bullet-ridden heavy truck. As he watched, more ATVs were sent spinning, erupting in flames, a trail of burning wrecks marking the path of the chase. Kelt's eyes narrowed, uncertainty clouding his face. This 13th Bureau team, their firepower was this devastating. Highly lethal special forces teams were rare. Modern military firepower, but smaller, more mobile. Typically, these were elite units. He suppressed his surprise, his gaze hardening, a calculating glint in his eyes. Finn, Wenner, and the others stared in disbelief. One heavy truck, absorbing a car convoy's fire and taking out half the pursuers. Unprecedented firepower. That heavy truck must have taken 1,000 rounds, and it's still moving, riddled with holes, yet still running like a scalded dog. That truck had to be heavily modified. They'd seen a grenade impact the truck's armor, minimal deformation. A normal vehicle would have been vaporized. What kind of metal was that? Unbelievably tough. Even the 13th Bureau agents were muttering expletives under their breath. When had Wade's team become this lethal? Could a mechanic really make this much difference? Chapter 082, double-crossed. The Sprout pursuit convoy slammed on the brakes, scrambling to reverse. Kelt's eyes flashed. Fire for effect. Take them all out. His adjutant understood the order instantly, a chill running down his spine. He relayed the command, setting the target zone. The rocket artillery vehicles lumbered forward, unleashing a devastating barrage of short-range rockets. The heavy truck, Big Black, was caught right on the edge of the designated impact zone. The 13th Bureau team, keen-eyed observers, noticed immediately. Fury erupted. "Area calculation error. Damn it," the adjutant stammered, a transparently weak excuse. Bryce's rage exploded. "Kelt, what the hell are you doing?" Kelt offered no reply, his face impassive, a flicker of cold intent in his eyes. "Too bad you're not Hazian." Rocket trails seared across Lyra's vision, brilliant. "Deadly. They're trying to blow us up too," she yelled in horror. "The Hazians are doing this on purpose," Wade roared, incandescent with fury. They knew joint operations with other nations meant navigating potential hostility. But this commander was actually acting on it. If they died here, it would be chalked up to friendly fire. No responsibility taken. Only the most radical would pull such a treacherous move. Sacrificing allies, consequences be damned. Sprout was a common enemy, a threat to all 6 nations. Anti-terrorism was a shared goal, but they were not allies. Friction constant, leadership feigned cooperation, smiles hiding daggers. Those on the ground were pawns in a deadly game of power. Familiar, isn't it? Harlan's gaze hardened. Nitrous now. Lyra slammed the button. Blue flames erupted from the heavy truck's exhaust, velocity spiking instantly. It was a brutal surge. Slamming her against the seat, pinning her, the rocket barrage was falling, closing fast. 300 meters, 200, 150, boom. Finally, the ground erupted. Mushroom clouds of dust and earth bloomed across the plain. A rolling wave of heat slammed into them. For a split second, everyone went deaf, decibels far beyond human tolerance. The explosion became a silent spectacle, only the blinding fire, expanding, rising, illuminating the night. Everything caught in the blast radius vehicle, human, everything was pulverized. 3 seconds. Then, the ringing returned to their ears. The 13th Bureau agents were incandescent with rage. Dai Susu's eyes burned with grief and killing intent, a faint blue aura shimmering around her. Whoosh, wind buffeted them. Big Black, trailing smoke and fire. Lurched out of the black cloud, cargo hold half destroyed, equipment and parts reduced to scrap metal. They're alive, the 13th Bureau team gasped in relief. Lyra shuddered, heart hammering. 10 more meters, and Big Black wouldn't have made it. No nitrous boost, no escape. Ashes, Harlan coughed, spitting blood-flecked phlegm. He wasn't unscathed. The blast wave had slammed through, ripping away over 200 health points. Secondary impact damage from slamming against the cargo hold cost him another 50. His head swam, nitrous spent, the heavy truck's engine overheated, coughing and sputtering before finally dying just as they reached the Hazian lines. Hazian soldiers stared, eyes wide, at the heavy truck's shredded exterior. Cease felt a cold dread. How intense had that fight been? It looked like it had been through a meat grinder. They survived the blast. Pity, Kelt murmured, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. Harlan and the others climbed out. The 13th Bureau team swarmed them. Bryce, pale with shock, sagged with relief seeing Harlan was alive. Kelt strode over, triggering a wave of hostile glares from the 13th Bureau agents. Wade's jaw clenched. He moved to confront Kelt, armored suit whirring, but Hazian soldiers instantly leveled their rifles. "Stay back," the adjutant barked. "I want an explanation," Wade roared. "Explanation? Childish." Kelt ignored him, glancing at Harlan. "The prisoners, where are they?" "Dead." Kelt's preemptive attack had put them in mortal danger. The 2 prisoners they'd risked everything to capture were dead, and Kelt had just tried to vaporize them. Deliberately, Harlan lowered his gaze, masking the icy fury in his eyes. "So no proof then?" Kelt frowned, feigning dissatisfaction. His attitude ignited the 13th Bureau's simmering rage, but logic held them back. Surrounded by Hazian troops, open conflict meant certain death. Bryce, forcing down his anger, said coldly, 13th Bureau will be asking questions. Kelt shrugged it off. 13th Bureau had no jurisdiction over him. Just a mistake. No proof. Maybe a diplomatic slap on the wrist. Nothing that would hurt. Securing Dark Raven Valley base meant a substantial achievement. Battlefield glory. With his backers pulling strings, he could solidify his position within the radical faction. 13th Bureau could complain all they wanted. Hazian High Command would deflect it. Kelt paused, pointing at Harlan, who appeared the most injured. "Take him to medical, get him checked out." Harlan's face remained blank. He followed the medic to a medical vehicle. His injuries were mostly soft tissue bruising. With his resilience, he'd recover quickly. He waved the medic away. The medical vehicle started up, part of the Hazian advance. He shook his head, lay down on the cot, closing his eyes. No sleep since yesterday. Now finally a moment to rest. Gunfire echoed faintly. Harlan opened his eyes. He'd been sleeping lightly. He stepped out of the vehicle. Dawn was breaking, around 3 or 4 in the morning. The Hazian army had reached Dark Raven Valley's perimeter. Intense fighting raged at the front. Dark Raven Valley base's 6-layer security zone wasn't just patrols and checkpoints. It was a buffer against large-scale military assault. Riddled with bunkers and pillboxes. Now, these tactical points were manned, war-ready. Hazian forces had to breach these 6 layers to even reach the main base. In the woods, Hazian troops assaulted defensive positions, pillboxes, bunkers. Finn's intel, for now, was guiding their advance. Harlan was with the rear echelon. Far from the front lines, 2 soldiers stood guard nearby. Harlan casually asked, "How's the battle going?" "Smoothly, sir. We've pushed into the 4th perimeter." One soldier replied. Harlan nodded. He turned to leave, but the 2 soldiers blocked his path. "Colonel's orders, sir. You're to rest here." Kelt had confined him. Harlan frowned. "What about my team?" "Your commanding officer also instructed us to watch you, sir. He wants you to rest." Harlan's eyes narrowed. Bryce's intention was clear. Keep him out of danger. The near-friendly fire incident had spooked Bryce. He wouldn't risk Harlan at the front again. This might actually work to my advantage. Harlan thought. He spotted Big Black being towed, parked nearby. The chase had crippled it. It needed a major overhaul before it was operational again. An idea sparked. Harlan walked towards the truck. The guards didn't stop him. As long as he stayed within the rear echelon zone, they wouldn't interfere. He climbed into the cargo hold. The essentials were still there. The 2 dead prisoners had been removed. Harlan pulled out a comms unit, tuning to Lyra's frequency. "Lyra, you alive?" "Just barely, Harlan." Lyra's irritated voice crackled in his ear. "Situation? Preparing to withdraw. Base command says outer bases are mobilizing to intercept Hazian forces. Still trying to get extraction routes. Guessing we'll have to go with the general retreat. Oh, and Finn's intel. Fake. 3rd to 6th perimeter defenses layouts. Forces real, but the innermost 1st and 2nd, completely different. Hazian armies going to walk into a meat grinder if they follow Finn's maps. Did you warn them?" "Nope, you're the first person I contacted." "Good, don't notify the Hazians." Lyra sounded puzzled. "Why not?" Harlan explained the rocket barrage incident. Lyra's voice hardened with fury. "Outrageous." Kelt had shown his hand, revealed his malice. 13th Bureau would no longer be helping Hazian forces minimize casualties. Harlan provided intel for mission completion, maximizing the chance to eliminate Parker, Season, and the core leadership that was the priority. Kelt saw him as a tool. Harlan would use him the same way. "Your intel for my army. Mutual exploitation." He didn't care how many Hazian soldiers died, as long as they followed his intel. Completed his mission. Kelt's sudden treachery, though, was unexpected. Time to adjust the plan. Harlan's eyes gleamed. Chapter 083, Superhuman Tears on Aquamarine Dawn broke. The start of a new day, and for armies, a new offensive. After breaching the 4th perimeter, Kelt had ordered a 1-hour rest. With sunrise, the advance resumed. Aiming to crush Dark Raven Valley base in one final push, they were now engaged in the 3rd perimeter, locked in fierce combat. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions ripped through the woods. Trees shredded by bullets and artillery. Spent casings and shrapnel littered the ground, acrid smoke choking the air. Hazian infantry squads, supported by armored vehicles, assaulted one defensive position after another. Pillboxes, bunkers. Finn's intelligence proved invaluable, exposing enemy fortifications. Hazian forces advanced with minimal losses, breaching defenses with surprising ease. Soldiers had never fought such a smoothly executed campaign. "Keep pushing, crush the last 2 lines of defense," Kelt declared, riding high on the momentum. But as the emboldened troops stormed into the 2nd perimeter, the tide turned violently, moments after entering the 2nd layer. Hazian forces blundered into the first ambush of the campaign. Anti-personnel mines ripped apart 2 armored vehicles and a dozen soldiers, a mere appetizer. The previous ease turned into a brutal meat grinder. Casualties mounted, traps and ambushes seemingly everywhere. Finn's intel was useless, following false directions. Losses skyrocketed. Squad leaders panicked. Season's trap had sprung, using the intel for the outer perimeters to lure the Hazian army deeper, then unleashing hell. Casualties surged. Kelt's face was a mask of fury. Wenner and the others exchanged horrified glances. The intel was bait. Harlan's prediction had been right. Their mistake was costing lives. Finn shook his head. "The enemy is ruthless, cunning. Their intel trap used their own people as bait. Avoiding it was almost impossible." "Defender's advantage. Sprout can afford to sacrifice everything. We can't." Kelt was too aggressive. He should have listened to Harlan, played it safe. He sighed, looking at his guilt-ridden teammates. Kelt watched his frontline troops fall, one after another, his face darkening. A promising advance turned into a nightmare. What should have been a decisive victory was becoming a bloody, Pyrrhic win, diminishing his achievement. Hazian forces were taking a brutal beating. Progress slowing to a crawl. Suddenly, a figure hurtled out of the enemy lines, a ferocious-looking man, wielding a long blade, surrounded by a chilling, colorless aura, like invisible flames, distorting the air around him. He charged straight at a Hazian infantry squad. The soldiers opened fire, but the man spun, his blade blurring into a dazzling arc, a storm of light. Bullets shattered, turned to fragments, raining uselessly to the ground. Martial artist, soldiers cried in terror. Before they could react, he crashed into their ranks, a whirlwind of flashing steel. In seconds, the squad was butchered, limbs, torsos, heads flying in a bloody spray. The man stood amidst the carnage, bathed in gore, a war god incarnate. Parker, Cease and the other agents gasped. Dark Raven Valley Base's director. Sprout executive, his name synonymous with brutality on the dark web. Countless combat victories, legendary kills. Dark web reports described Parker as a master swordsman. His style derived from the Rain School, earning him the moniker Soul Blade. His blades flashed the last image his victims ever saw. Armored vehicles swiveled their turrets. Heavy caliber rounds hammering Parker. He moved impossibly fast, legs a blur, weaving through trees. Ordinary soldiers couldn't even track him. He vanished and reappeared in a blink. Every shot missed. Parker carved a path through the battlefield, a reaper of souls. Squad after squad fell, his blade even tearing through armored vehicle plating, killing the crews inside. In an environment offering even minimal cover, a superhuman in a low-tech, ordinary human conflict became a force of nature. Chi energy protecting them, standard firearms barely scratching the surface. D-class superhumans could single-handedly hold off small, armed units and likely escape unscathed. C-class superhumans transcended a threshold, possessing superhuman resilience. Firearms, small artillery ineffective. Terrain-destroying power became commonplace. Tearing down buildings with bare hands was routine. C-class was considered base-level strength in the cosmos, basic planetary exploration warrior physique. Planets with varying gravity, climate C-class could land on most. Even some hostile alien species were born with C-class stats, but C-class superhumans were rare on Aquamarine. The planet's overall superhuman level was low. Parker was E-plus class, a step away from D-class. In the dense forest, against Hazian soldiers, he was unstoppable. Superhumans, individually powerful, posed the greatest threat by striking command or engaging in infiltration and sabotage. Parker cut down soldiers. Advancing directly towards Kelt, locked in Parker's killing gaze, felt ice water in his veins. His surrounding troops offered no comfort. Heat-seeking missile barrage. He screamed. A missile-equipped armored vehicle lumbered into position, launching a volley of heat-seeking rockets, all locked onto Parker. Parker weaved through the trees. The rockets slamming into trunks, exploding harmlessly. Only the last one threaded through the trees, heading straight for Parker. Parker's brow furrowed. He braked hard, skidding, sending dirt flying. Two-handed grip on his blade, invisible blade aura extending. He swung, deflecting the heat seeker, timing perfect. Striking the missile's side. Skillfully redirected, the rocket careened off course, slamming into a tree 20 meters away, erupting in flames. Parker only felt a slight shockwave. Damage Harlan would see, less than 20 points, rocket fire ineffective. Kelt's blood ran cold. He turned to the agents, his meaning clear. Go, Wenner barked. Hazian agents surged forward. 13th Bureau agents watched, impassive. The joint operation was fractured. No reason to help now, seeing the agents move. Parker instantly retreated, blade sheathed, not wanting to be drawn into a prolonged fight here. Gunfire erupted, bullet leaving the chamber, a flash of steel. The bullet aimed at his forehead, cleaved in two by Parker's blade, reactions lightning fast. Not that he was faster than a bullet, but he'd already positioned his blade in the bullet's path before it even reached him. Anticipation. Honed reflexes, Parker's face remained impassive. He turned, vanishing back into the woods at impossible speed. In the ambush, Parker had killed hundreds. Destroyed vehicles, Hazian morale plummeted, casualties were crippling. The initial momentum from breaking the first 4 perimeters evaporated. Kelt. Despite his fury, had to pull back, slow the advance. Inside Dark Raven Valley Base, Season watched the battle on monitors. The second defense line had fallen. Hazian forces were advancing on the final perimeter. Even with the devastating trap, the base's defenses couldn't bridge the gap between base personnel and a regular army. But everything was still proceeding as planned. With Parker back, Season had locked down the inner base access. Even if the outer base fell, the inner base remained hidden. And Season had left a parting gift for the Hazian army in the outer base. "Deputy Director, when do we evacuate?" "Now," Season said calmly, "at Secret Passage 3's entrance." Inner base personnel gathered. Lyra and Lambert were at the rear, pretending to converse, subtly sending coded messages via their micro earpieces. Boom. The last bunker crumbled under a tank shell. The remaining defenders had no choice but to retreat into the base. All defenses breached. Kelt finally exhaled. The last two perimeters had cost him 70% of his casualties. The report would be ugly. Enemies are cornered in the base, nowhere to run. "Should we let the troops rest?" his adjutant suggested. Kelt hesitated. Then Harlan's intel flashed in his mind: the inner base, the secret passage. This was the only chance to salvage his victory, to maximize his gains. No time to waste. He couldn't risk letting them escape. He made the call: assault the base immediately. "Soldiers, search every facility, especially storerooms. Intel suggests a hidden door leading to a secret inner base." Orders barked. Battle-weary soldiers rallied. Pushing into Dark Raven Valley Base, the base's tight corridors meant close-quarters combat, gunfire echoing endlessly. The fight raged for a while. "Report." "Storeroom located, sir. No hidden doors. Solid walls. Explosives test negative solid structure." "Another intel error," Kelt frowned, summoning his adjutant. "Bring the 13th Bureau team here, and Harlan, I want answers." Chapter 084, Self-Destruct. The front lines roared with combat. From the rear, Harlan could see the battlefield's chaotic silhouette. Having witnessed world-ending wars in the past, this low-tech ground conflict felt surprisingly visceral. The smell of gunpowder, the thunder of artillery, a raw, tangible sense of war. Stark contrast to the silent, invisible annihilation of hyperenergy cannons and ion beams. Harlan sat in Big Black's cargo hold, the two guards still posted outside, watching him like hawks. Lyra's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Harlan, we're with the core evacuation team. I've planted the virus. I can cut their comms anytime. Good work." "Oh," Lambert noticed something. "The inner base structure is heavily reinforced." "Blast-proof, looks like." Harlan frowned, piecing the clues together. "Outer base not just bait but a tomb. Loaded with explosives likely. Invaders step inside. Boom, up in smoke, and the blast could collapse the outer base, bury all traces, making the inner base even more secure." "Layered traps, damn," Harlan murmured. Warning them now was pointless, and he wasn't about to. His own plan finally reaching its final stage, Harlan started packing. Gear, Big Black's valuable parts crammed into his bag. Bulging. "Hey," he called to the guards outside, "give me a hand with this. It's heavy." The two soldiers, unsuspecting, climbed into the cargo hold. Ready to lift the bag, the instant they bent over, Harlan moved. Two swift, brutal friendship punches to the back of their necks. The guards crumpled. Unconscious, without a sound, Harlan closed the cargo door, quickly stripping off one soldier's uniform. He removed his ever-present mask, activated his mimic mask. Shifting his face to match the soldier's, bag slung over his shoulder, he strolled out, blending seamlessly into the rear echelon chaos. 3 minutes earlier. The adjutant rushed back. 13th Bureau team's here, sir, but Harlan's gone." Kelt's eyes widened. "Gone?" The guards knocked out. Rear echelon confirmed no sign of Harlan. Kelt sputtered, about to explode, when a deafening roar ripped through the air, throwing him back. He whirled around towards the sound. The ground bucked. Earthquake-like tremors sent everyone reeling. Dark Raven Valley Base, self-destructed. The entire base imploded, the entrance sealed by tons of rock and debris. Hundreds of elite soldiers buried alive. Kelt stared, horror and fury battling for dominance, lured into a final trap. Pointless casualties, base destroyed. Victory hollowed out, worthless. As commander, the blame was his. Kelt's face darkened. Harlan's earlier suggestion echoed in his mind. If he'd listened, maybe this could have been avoided. But if he had to choose again, knowing his own nature and the pressure of the moment, Kelt knew he'd make the same call. Frustration clawed at him. He slammed his fist against the command vehicle's wall. Troop losses crippling. Kelt felt the sting of failure. He barked orders, trying to rally morale. When the 13th Bureau team arrived, Kelt's voice was a snarl. "Your teammate's missing. What the hell is going on?" "Harlan's missing again." The 13th Bureau team's faces paled, exchanging stunned looks. "Again? Why again?" Bryce's world tilted. "Not this shit again." Wade and Lyra, however, remained calm, a knowing look in their eyes, a veteran's weary understanding. Unauthorized solo ops, standard Harlan procedure. Just get used to it, used to it. Used to it. He was probably off doing something crazy, Lyra snorted, addressing Kelt. "If it wasn't for him getting your intel, you'd think you'd wiped out the enemy after blowing up the outer base." Never even knowing they escaped, Kelt paused, considering. She was right. That scenario was entirely plausible. A cold sweat broke out. If Dark Raven Valley base resurfaced later, he'd be the first one on the chopping block. "Any more intel?" Kelt asked, swallowing his pride. Wade, forcing down his disgust for Kelt, said, "2 of our team infiltrated their escape route. They'll send intel on their location." Kelt's eyes lit up. "Report immediately. Any news?" He hadn't realized Harlan had done this much. Perfect. Casualties were worse than expected. A victory now, intercepting their core force, was his only chance to redeem himself, mitigate the damage of his command errors. 10 kilometers from Dark Raven Valley base, in an inconspicuous ravine, Parker, Season, and 200 core members emerged from the secret passage, vehicles loaded with valuable cargo. Dark Raven Valley's most sensitive data. "Hazians probably think they won," Season chuckled, a smug grin spreading across his face. Parker glanced at him. "Don't get complacent." Season nodded, ordering the convoy to accelerate. 2 more hours, and they'd reach a hidden airstrip, with Black Kite helicopters and a small transport plane waiting. In the convoy, Lyra and Lambert received Wade's signal in their earpieces. Time to act. Lyra pulled out a tablet, subtly activating the virus embedded in the enemy's network. SSSHHHHHHHH. Earpieces across the convoy erupted in deafening static, startling everyone. They ripped them out, cursing. Season frowned, about to order the lead vehicle to stop, to check the comms when, from the surrounding woods, a distant engine rumble grew rapidly louder, encircling them from all sides. "Down," Parker roared, shoving a slow-reacting Season to the ground. Even as Parker moved, gunfire exploded. A storm of bullets ripped through the convoy from all directions. Grenade rounds tore apart Sprout vehicles, fire blooming everywhere. Lambert grabbed Lyra, diving out of their vehicle, rolling into the woods, dodging the initial onslaught. Season's face was a mask of disbelief. Their plan compromised, intel leak, who, run, shock and disbelief gave way to raw survival instinct. Parker hauled Season up, dragging him into the trees. In the woods, Kelt grinned, adrenaline pumping. He directed his troops, encircling the core enemy force. This was his chance. His last hope for battlefield glory. In the distance, a lone ATV, driven by a figure in disguise. Harlan, mimic mask engaged, thermal imager in hand, scanned the battle's edge. He spotted his targets: Parker, dragging Season, breaking through the encirclement, soldiers and vehicles falling to Parker's brutal counterattack. They were escaping. Harlan locked onto their thermal signatures, circled wide, tracking them from several hundred meters behind. "Vehicle tracking us?" Parker glanced back. Through the trees, a faint outline of an ATV, engine noise carrying on the wind. Parker considered eliminating the tracker, but each time he turned, the ATV veered away. Maintaining distance, like a persistent shadow, Parker assumed it was a scout, relaying their position, more troops incoming. He couldn't risk stopping. He dragged Season onward, lungs burning, stamina draining, hidden hangar, helicopters, escape, Parker's only option. Superhuman strength, yes, but against an army. A war of attrition he couldn't win. Panic fueled his pace, ignoring Season's wheezing, near collapse. 20 minutes of relentless pursuit, distance from the main battle widening. Time, Harlan muttered. He consulted the military map pilfered from the rear echelon, plotted their trajectory. He cut through the woods, ATV's superior speed allowing him to circle far ahead. Intercepting them 2 kilometers down their likely path, a 10-meter cliff face, he parked, killed the engine, and began gearing up, lightweight-powered arm. Vibration mod slid onto his left arm, magnetic adaptive armor panels clipped to his belt, twin hawks holstered at his sides, last 10 delay fuse explosives. Laid in a 5-meter radius around him, a makeshift minefield. A thin wire threaded through each detonator pin, one pull would trigger them all. Harlan grabbed a sniper rifle scavenged from the rear echelon. He dropped prone on the cliff edge, scope trained on the point where his targets would emerge. Breath held, Season's legs turned to lead, face ashen. Not superhuman, limited stamina. Parker was the only thing keeping him upright. Parker's face was grim. Keep moving, they'll be coming. Gotta reach the hangar. They burst from the trees, mountainous terrain ahead. Season's legs buckled. He collapsed, gasping, "I can't go on." Parker frowned, impatience flashing. But he couldn't abandon Season. Season's sister ran a significant chunk of the organization's intel network. High-ranking. "Maybe you could carry me." "Then," Season began, voice ragged, half-finished sentence. A sniper shot ripped through the air. Parker's reflexes kicked in. He jerked back, but the shot wasn't for him. Season's head snapped back, as if punched. A gaping hole appeared in his left cheek, blood erupting. The bullet's force ripped through his skull, exiting on the right side. Shattering bone and flesh, he froze, expression fixed in shock, then slumped to the ground, lifeless. Headshot Roman 2 completed. Output ratio 100%. You gained 40. 000 experience. Parker's pupils constricted. He drew his blade, charging towards the gunshot's origin. Chapter 085. Intercept. Parker was closing fast. Harlan fired again and again, sniper rounds spinning out, piercing the air, hurtling towards his target. But Parker seemed to possess an animalistic danger sense. Always shifting direction just before Harlan pulled the trigger. 13 shots fired, 9 dodged, leaving neat holes in the ground. 4 hits. Sniper rounds pierced the shimmering blade aura. But their kinetic energy bled away, deflected by the flowing Kai shield. Total damage, barely 80 points, superhuman tiers the higher you climbed. The more exponentially resistance increased. Standard firearms became increasingly ineffective. Conventional weapon power reflected civilization level. As expansions opened, maps widened, weapons would be upgraded. But not yet, not here, distance hundreds of meters shrinking rapidly. Parker's furious. Murderous face sharpened in his scope. "Damn, that's some snake-like dodging," Harlan cursed, abandoning the sniper rifle. One swift pull on the wire. Detonating the explosives, then, feigning retreat, he scrambled back. Parker was faster. A few strides, he was on the cliff face, foot landing squarely in the minefield. He instantly registered the anomaly, face contorting. He launched himself skyward, blade whirling, Kai energy coalescing beneath him, like he was about to spiral into the heavens. Boom! 10 delay fuse explosives erupted simultaneously. Fire engulfed Parker. Your delay fuse explosive dealt 34 explosive damage to Parker. Damage reduction applied. Your delay fuse explosive dealt 37 explosive damage to Parker. Damage reduction applied. Parker is suffering from minor burn status. Damage notifications flooded his HUD. Harlan glanced over. The chain detonation had ripped away over 400 of Parker's health. Based on your level, you have gained partial information about the enemy. Parker, total level, 38 class, Agent LV-10, Martial Arts Novice LV-10. Storm Blade Master LV-10, stats, Strength 65, Agility, Endurance, Intelligence, Mysticism, Charm 8, Luck 7 HP, Kai. Energy level, 687 tier, E+ specializations. Basic Blade Arts Insight plus 10 attack power with Blade Weapons Wind Blade Essence. Blade is an extension of the body. Listen to the wind's breath. Skills: Wind Guard Blade LV-6, Wind Glide Step LV-4. Equipment: Wind Shear Blade, Quality Green. Attack power 44 to 47, length 0.87 m, weight 10.2 pounds. Alloy Combat Blade forged by a master craftsman. Exceptionally durable. Effect: Wind Whisper Smooth Handling. Plus 3% attack speed effect. Razor Edge Exceptionally Sharp Blade, plus 7% extra damage against metal. Level gap significant. Much of the data obscured. But Harlan wasn't reliant on stats. Parker's performance indicated high attack, high agility type. HP likely limited. The explosions had chipped off at least 20% of his health. And Parker had been fighting, running for an hour, not at peak condition. My odds are better now. Harlan checked his experience bar. 520,000 experience points. Dumped it all into level ups, rocketing through levels 4 in rapid succession. Total level, 28 HP, 985, nearing 1,000. Kai Refinement Technique, already at 48 cycles. Kai hovering around 390, just shy of the breakthrough. 4 level-ups pushed Kai past 514. Exceeding the LV-5 threshold of 400, unlocking a new stat bonus. Strength, endurance, agility, intelligence all boosted by roughly 10%. Remaining experience. Glide Step Burst Fire, leveled to rank 2, slightly improved effect. Whoosh, Parker burst from the flames, charred, battered. Feral eyes locked on Harlan. A guttural roar, a lightning-fast step, Wind Glide Step engaged, closing the distance in a blink. Blade arcing down, a brutal strike aimed to cleave Harlan in two. Blade descending, but Harlan shifted, gliding 3 meters back, a burst of speed that even surprised Parker. He narrowly avoided the blade, hands moving faster than thought. Twin hawks drawn, firing in rapid succession, steel core rounds hammering towards Parker's chest. Parker's blade flashed, deflecting, shattering rounds. Only one stray bullet clipped his chest, Kai energy absorbing most of the impact, lodging itself in his muscles, barely penetrating. Harlan saw ordinary rounds were useless. He rapidly swapped to high-explosive magazines. Parker seized the split-second opening, closing the gap instantly, reloading in front of a swordsman. You have a death wish, reloading bullets in front of a martial artist? Amateur mistake. Parker's face was contorted in a snarl, wind shear blade thrusting straight for Harlan's throat. To skewer him like meat on a spit, he could see it. Harlan couldn't dodge this. Ding, blade tip struck home, piercing his throat, but met solid resistance. A layer of scale-like metal deflected the blow. Parker's eyes widened, pupils shrinking to pinpricks. Armor. When did armor appear? Harlan's throat constricted. Magnetic adaptive armor absorbed the impact, but the force still reverberated through him. He raised the twin hawks, unleashing a barrage. Parker, instinctively, went to deflect the rounds again, but high-explosive bullets detonated on impact, tendrils of fire licking at his body, erupting in flames. What kind of bullets are these? Parker thought in alarm. Kai energy flared, attempting to extinguish the flames, but failed. Orange fire clung stubbornly, wouldn't shake off. Skin began to blister. He had to channel Kai to protect himself. A massive drain, high-explosive rounds, intensely adhesive fire, inflicting persistent burn damage. Parker's resistance was high. HP dropping slowly, but better than nothing. At least it was draining his health. Twin hawks emptied, last round chambered, triggering the glide step burst fire magazine reload. In that time, Parker's clothes burned away, hair and fur incinerated. Harlan paid the price: magnetic armor, absorbing brutal, repeated blade strikes. Durability plummeting. Harlan's gaze was fixed, unwavering. Twin hawks dropped. For the trade-off, another blade strike slammed into his armor. He drew his folded Tiberium combat blade. Right-hand blade, left-hand powered arm. Like a primal warrior, a berserker ancestor possessing him, a fearless beast, he engaged Parker in brutal close-quarters combat. Blood flying, you slash at me, I punch you. Harlan's 3 pieces of equipment: magnetic armor, powered arm, combat blade, all usable as shields. Parker, forced to rely on his body, seemed to be at a disadvantage, but reality was inverted. Parker held the upper hand. He landed 7, 8 blows for every one of Harlan's that connected. Their combat skill levels were galaxies apart. Parker was a seasoned martial artist. Harlan's close-quarters combat skills were laughable, like a drunken brawl. Only Harlan's willingness to trade blows, his armor absorbing the brunt of the damage, kept him in the fight. Without it, he wouldn't have landed a single hit. Choosing close combat with me, eager to die faster. Parker couldn't fathom Harlan's audacity, challenging a martial artist in melee. To him, it was taunting an enemy with your weakness. Suicidal arrogance. Blade flashed, a searing pain across Harlan's cheek, flesh peeling back, blood welling. Before the fight, he'd removed the mimic mask, preventing damage. His true face was exposed. Parker recognized him instantly. Zero, the defector, the one causing ripples within the organization recently. Why Zero was here, attacking him, Parker didn't know, didn't care. Enemy, that was all that mattered. Kill him. Blade strikes hammered through the armor. Vibrations jolting Harlan's core, HP plummeting, but Harlan's eyes remained ice cold, daring to attack weakness with strength. He had a plan. Sniper fire. Explosives. Now this brutal exchange of blows. He chipped away 700-800 of Parker's HP, and his magnetic armor, his shield, had only absorbed around 300 damage. Not quite accurate. Let's rephrase. Magnetic armor had mitigated at least 1500 HP loss. Magnetic adaptive armor equipment Harlan shouldn't have at his current level. 75 points of defense. Unbelievable. Even at level 40-50, still formidable. His greatest asset. With this armor, he had the audacity to brute force his way through anything at his tier. Harlan's hands locked, grappling Parker's blade arm. Parker sneered, arm flowing like water, effortlessly breaking free. Another casual slash, leaving a deep gash across the powered arm. Without the Tiberium alloy, the arm would have been shattered. Then, Harlan registered a detail. A flicker of hesitation in Parker's movements, a subconscious economy of effort. He's tiring. Kai exhaustion, stat bonuses fading, condition deteriorating. Harlan's eyes blazed, combat instincts sharpened. He sensed the shift, the opportunity. He instantly triggered the item long held in reserve. Character descent card, Nossa Cornot, character descent card activated. Uses remaining, 0/1. Card will disappear after use. Parker saw a phantom figure materialize behind Harlan, the most striking feature, a pair of bizarre eyes, swirling with iridescent mist. A flicker of recognition. Who? Wait, Nossa, but he's dead. What the hell? Parker's senses screamed. He lunged back, but too late. One glance and he was trapped in illusion, paralyzed. Judgment in progress, intelligence below 50. Judgment passed. Illusion successful.